All right, today we are still working with slopes and equations of lines, but this time we're going to determine whether they're parallel or perpendicular. So how do you know when two lines are parallel? And this is the symbol for being parallel. When their slopes are the same, that's how you know when they are parallel. For example, if you look at these two equations, both of them are in slope y equals form. The slope of this is 2, and the slope of this line is also 2. So therefore, yes, these are parallel. When we look at these two, you've got this one has a slope of 3, this one has a slope of -3, so no, they are not. Looking at number 3, you see that this one has a slope of 1/2, but this one needs to be solved for x. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides, and I get, cancel, -6y equals 18 minus 3x. And if I divide every piece by -6, that cancels. Y equals -3. Two negatives make a positive, and 3 over 6 is the same thing as 1/2 x. So the slope of this line is also 1/2. So yes, these two are parallel. So how do you know when they're perpendicular? Well, when they're perpendicular, their slopes, oh, and this is the symbol for being perpendicular, so their slopes will be negative, reciprocals. And I know my handwriting is horrible. Or another way to say it is opposite reciprocals. So what you want to do is flip the fraction, and you want to switch their signs. So when they're perpendicular, one is positive and one is negative. So if I flip this fraction, it becomes 2 over 1. This one's positive, so this one's negative. Flip this fraction, it becomes 4 over 3. This one's positive, so this one would be negative. This is really -2 over 1, so if you flip it, it becomes 1 over 2. Since this one's negative, this one will be positive. This is really -4 over 1, so if you flip it, it's 1 over 4. Since that one's negative, this one will be positive. So now looking at two lines, determine if we've determined if they were parallel a while ago. Now we're going to determine if they're perpendicular. This has a slope of 3. This one has a slope of -3. One is positive and one is negative, but they're not reciprocals, so no, these are not perpendicular. This one has a slope of 1/2, and I need to solve this one so I can tell what the slope is. So I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. So I get 3y equals 18 minus 6x, and I'm going to divide every piece by 3. So I get y equals 6 minus 6 divided by 3 is 2x. So the slope is -2. These are reciprocals, and one's positive and one's negative, so yes, these are perpendicular. Sometimes they'll give you a set of 4 points, and they'll tell you that you have two lines, line AB and line CD. So we're going to tell if it's parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So the first thing we're going to have to do is using the slope formula. So remember slope formula, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. And I'm going to take and label my points, x1, y1, x2, y2. And I'm going to find the slope of AB. So I've got 7 minus -5 over 4 minus -2. Two negatives make a positive. 7 plus 5 is 12. Two negatives still make a positive. And 12 divided by 6 is 2. So the slope of AB is 2. So now find the slope of the other one. I'm going to do the same thing. x1, y1, x2, y2. So plugging into the formula again. -2 minus 2 and 8 minus 0. So I get -4 over 8. which reduces to negative 1/2. So this is negative 1/2. Since one is positive and one is negative, and they're also reciprocals, these two are perpendicular. So now we're going to do the same thing over here. x1, y1, x2, y2. So using the slope formula again, I'm just going to plug and chug. So the slope is going to be negative 4 minus negative 7 divided by positive 4 minus negative 8. Two negatives make a positive, so this really says 7 minus 4, which is 3. And this is 4 plus 8, which is 12. And 3 over 12 reduces to 1/4. So the slope of AB this time is 1/4. And then the slope of CD, x1, y1, x2, y2. Plug and chug. We've got 7 minus negative 5 over 1 minus negative 2. Two negatives, so that becomes 12. This one's two negatives, and that one becomes 3. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. So the slope of this line is 4. Now they are reciprocals, but they're both positive, so they're neither. All right, so now finding the slope when you're on a grid, way easier because all you have to do is rise and run. So I'm going to rise 2, and I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to run 4. So if I rise 2 and run 4, that really just reduces to 1/2. And the same thing with CD. Rise 2, run 4. So if I rise 2 and run 4, again, it still reduces to 1/2. So these are parallel. Notice parallel lines are the same distance from each other all the way across. Okay. Is the line 4, 3, 3, negative 1 perpendicular to this line? It's the same exact question we just did a few minutes ago, but they're just asking it in a different way. So I'm just going to find the slope of this line here. So x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay. So the slope formula remembers y2, negative 1, minus y1, 3, over x2 minus x1. So negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. So this becomes a positive 4. And if I do the same thing with the other 2 points, so this is x1, y1, x2, y2, and I find the slope, I get 2 minus 3 over 1 minus negative 3. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. These become positive, so negative 1 over 4. So since these are reciprocals and they're also opposites, these two are perpendicular. Okay, now this time we're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. But they want it to go through this point, x1, y1, and they want it to be parallel. Well, the first thing I need to do is find the slope of this line, because if it's parallel, it has the same slope. So all I really need to do here is just subtract 2x from both sides. So I get that y is negative 2x plus 6. And I see that my slope is negative 2. So since my slope is negative 2, and I have this point over here, 310, I can use the point-slope form to get my equation. So remember, y minus y1 is m times x minus x1. And keep in mind, you don't have to remember or memorize these formulas because they're all on your formula chart. So y minus 10 equals negative 2 times x minus 3. So y minus 10, distribute the 2, negative 2x plus 6, add 10 to the 6, and you get y equals negative 2x plus 16. So this would be your answer. All right, we're going to do it again. We're going to write slope-intercept form. We're going to go through this point, x1, y1, and this time we'll want to be perpendicular. But they were nice to us this time and they gave us the slope. so the slope is negative 1/2. But I need the perpendicular slope, so I flip it and change the sign. So now I'm going to use this as my slope, and this is my point. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So y minus negative 2 is 2 times x minus 5. That becomes positive. So y plus 2 is 2x minus 10. And then final step to subtract the 2. So we get y equals 2x minus 12. Final answer. Okay. This time they give us an equation of a line and they want us to graph it. So this is my y-intercept, so I'm going to find that on my graph. And then I'm going to use the slope, negative 3 over 2. So I'm going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 2, 1, 2. So that puts me right there. And then I'm going to draw a line through those 2 points. Now this time they say to graph a line parallel, so I'm going to use the same slope, but this time I'm going to use negative 2 as my y-intercept. So going to negative 2, I'm still going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 2. And then I'm going to draw my next line. And the 2 lines are, they don't really look it, but they are parallel according to the math. So, the end.